Welcome to the webinar. Welcome to Vitamin D and your immunity to the virus. My name is Dr. Brandon Lee, and my role with Vitamin D to the Rescue is I am the chief vitamin D nerd. And so I'm pretty proud of that, actually. So the original intent of this webinar was to take a big picture perspective, kind of a 30,000 foot view of vitamin D and review how many different parts of the body vitamin D is important for. I think a lot of people would be surprised to find out that a vitamin D deficiency puts you at a higher risk of many things. Bone fractures, autoimmune disease like multiple sclerosis, asthma, sinus congestion, different types of cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, depression, the common cold, the flu, the coronavirus. And so, how is it that the deficiency of one single nutrient could have such a widespread negative effect on the body? And so I think a lot of people would be interested in that. So be on the lookout for future webinars and future information about kind of the general thing. But for today, we wanted to focus in on the immune system, considering the circumstances of what's happening globally in March of 2020. I thought it would be appropriate to hone in and focus on the role of vitamin D in building your immune system, and specifically its antiviral power. Okay. Now, the vast majority of the knowledge that we have about vitamin D has come in really the past 10 to 15 years. Most of the research is basically recent. Now, I know that 10 years to you and I seems like a long time, but in terms of reaching the standard of practice or just being common knowledge amongst not only the general public, but amongst healthcare professionals, 10 to 20 years is not enough time. And so most people that you will talk to, including most healthcare professionals, are not aware of some of the science that we're about to look at. And so currently, it is agreed that vitamin D deficiency is a predictor of all-cause mortality. And that's kind of a fancy way of saying that basically when you are deficient in vitamin D, you are at a higher risk of dying early. Okay. Now, the stats are that 40 to 75% of the population is low in vitamin D. Basically, half of all people on the planet are not in the ideal range with their vitamin D level. And so let's launch into this. Now, let me give my FDA disclaimer. Now, clearly, I am not your primary care physician. Okay. As a matter of fact, most of you that are listening to this or watching this webinar, I will never meet you in person. Okay. So you need to use wisdom. You need to use common sense. I suggest that you consult with a healthcare practitioner that you trust. And most importantly, is a healthcare practitioner that is knowledgeable about nutrition and vitamin D. Okay. And is up to date on the research. Now, before we can go too far, the reality is that some research around vitamin D is based on understanding its mechanism of action and how it interacts in the body. And then other research is based around blood levels and observing large amounts of people in their health outcomes based on their vitamin D levels. And so blood levels of vitamin D are measured in nanograms per milliliter. Okay, this is the most common term that you would hear when people talk about their blood levels. And so I've got a picture here of some of my blood levels. You can see my name is actually spelled wrong, but that's beside the point. So on the top number that I have circled there, that is in the spring of 2019. So almost 1 year ago, I was, my blood level was 52.08. And then I had it retested just recently at the end of January of 2020, and my blood level was 70.43. And so those are most people, when they talk about their blood level, when they're speaking in terms of nanogram per milliliter, it's going to be a double-digit number like that. And essentially the range is, very low is going to be single digits, like below 10. And then the high range for most people is going to be way up at like 80 or 90. Okay. So let's dissect that a little bit deeper. Now, I know on first glance, this chart looks crazy and it looks confusing. And it is kind of confusing. And so let me do my best to make sense of it. And it's going to add a lot of clarity and a lot of context to all of our discussion moving forward. Now, especially if you are watching this webinar on your phone, it's going to be hard to see some of these numbers. And so I will zoom in and out of this on this chart. Basically, along the top, let's go ahead and zoom in. Along the top is blood levels of vitamin D. Okay, serum, it basically means blood. And so you can see the lowest level that's recorded on this chart is 6 nanograms per milliliter, which is really, really low. And then the highest level that's actually recorded on this chart is actually 68, but I'm zooming in to just above 60. And let's zoom back in. And so those are a range of vitamin D blood levels. And then there's a column on the far left side that is examples of different diseases. Okay, most of them are cancers. There's a couple autoimmune diseases in there. And so we have to understand that our original understanding of vitamin D was based around healthy bones. Okay, the discovery of vitamin D and the initial understanding was really back before most of us were even born. Okay, and back then they determined that blood levels in the teens, basically, if you look at this, 14, 16 nanograms per milliliter, 18 nanograms per milliliter, was discovered that was sufficient for preventing rickets. Okay, and so to this day, most people, when they think about vitamin D, they think about sunshine and fortified milk and bones and calcium. Okay, and all of that is true. That yes, vitamin D keeps your bones healthy, helps prevent rickets. No one wants to have rickets. That's great. Okay, but there's been a ton of research recently. Okay, and so if we zoom back out again, if you were able to zoom in and look at the fine print on this research down at the bottom of this slide, you would see that most of these research articles are relatively recent in the scheme of things, okay? The dates on many of these are mid-2000s, so 2006, 2007, 2008, the 2007 again, there's a 2012 in here. So really mid-2000s, and currently at the time of recording this, it's 2020, so this is like less than 15 years ago. Not just in our lifetime, but really in the past decade or two, there's been so much research that shows us that vitamin D plays such a more important role in many aspects of your health, especially in immune system function. So for the sake of time, I want to respect your time. I'm going to try and keep this whole webinar short and sweet, and we're going to dive into virus protection here in just a second. But let's look at a couple things. Okay, so let's look at a disease like let's go ahead and look at breast cancer. Okay, that is these pink blocks here. So what the research showed us is that at 34 nanograms per milliliter, there is a 30% reduction in the risk of developing breast cancer. Okay, so then if we slide to the far end of the pink block range, we see that at 50 nanograms per milliliter, there is an 83% reduction in the risk of developing breast cancer. Okay, now if you really let those words soak in, that is powerful. Okay, so we're saying that something that is safe and inexpensive, like vitamin D supplementation, has the potential power of reducing the risk of cancer by 83%. Holy moly, I will take those odds all day long. Okay, and so most experts agree that the optimal level of vitamin D blood level is between 40 and 60, and I want to show you that. Okay, there is a panel of experts from all over the world. Okay, if you look at these are brilliant PhD scientists from Greece and New Zealand and all over the US and Toronto and Alberta and France, all Germany, all over, and they all agree that the optimal range is between 40 to 60 for most people. Okay, so if we go back to the PowerPoint, okay, so between 40 and 60, and that's when we see a significant impact on the prevention of sickness and disease. Now, the last thing to notice before we move on to the next slide is that most North Americans in America and Canada, the average is 26, okay? And you're gonna see that's well below that range of 40 to 60. So now, keeping all of this in mind, let's move on to the next slide, okay? So again, the average North American, average American or Canadian is 26. Now, there was research done amongst 18,000 individuals, all ages 12 and above, okay? Among these 18,000 people that they used in this study, they found that if your blood level is between 10 to 29, okay, which is again, significantly below the recommended level, that you are at a 24% more likely to develop a upper respiratory tract infection. Now, an URTI, examples of that would be the flu, the common cold, and the coronavirus, okay? So if you're in that range, which is, that low range, you're at 24% more risk. If you are even more deficient in vitamin D, if you're down below 10, you're at 36% more chance of developing an upper respiratory tract infection, okay? So this is just one bit of information in a myriad of information that tells us that vitamin D deficiency increases our risk of viral infection, okay? Next slide. Okay, some science for you. This is more of a mechanism of how vitamin D works in your body. There are antimicrobial peptides floating around in your body called cathelicidins, and their job is to kill pathogens. They kill viruses, germs, and bacteria. Okay, vitamin D is directly involved in the production and function of cathelicidins. Okay, so if you're deficient in vitamin D, again, your vulnerability to viral infection is increased because there will be less cathelicidin activity in your body. White blood cells. If you have ever studied the immune system, you know that basically white blood cells are the immune system. And so there are there's many types of white blood cells. Some of them are called T cells. So for example, there are killer T cells and there are helper T cells. Now I know that killer sounds kind of scary, but it's actually a good thing because they kill pathogens. Now T cells respond directly to vitamin D. So again, someone who is white blood cells are your immune system basically, and someone who is deficient in vitamin D is going to be at a disadvantage in their defense against viral infection because their T cell function is going to be compromised. There are proteins. There's a family of proteins that are integral to your body's innate immune system called toll-like receptors. They call them TLRs. TLRs are a family of proteins, so there's various types of TLRs. One of them is TLR7, and research has found that it is particularly vulnerable to a vitamin D deficiency. And its role, TLR7's role, is to kill viruses. So again, one more piece of information in a myriad of information that shows us that vitamin D level is crucial in defending our bodies from viral infections. What's next? Okay, babies. Obviously, no one wants their baby to get a respiratory tract infection. And there was a study done that showed that if babies are given vitamin D supplementation, they are 52% less likely to get a respiratory tract infection, right? So that's powerful, 52%. So we got to keep the babies safe. Okay, the vitamin D hammer. This is a really fascinating article. This was published just 5 years ago in 2015. These researchers found they ended up nicknaming a megadose of 50,000 IUs of vitamin D as they nicknamed it the hammer. And they found that a one-time megadose of 50,000 IUs was a safe and effective strategy for defeating viral infections like the flu. Their research was based around the flu, and they found that it could either help you prevent the flu, or if you already did have it, it would help you beat the flu, and that it was safe with no negative side effects. Okay, so just one more piece of evidence about how powerful vitamin D is. Now, vitamin D to the rescue is your perfect source of high quality vitamin D. I founded this company several years ago with the purpose of serving two missions at one time. With my background in healthcare, I am convinced, I believe from the bottom of my heart, that if we could just increase the blood level of vitamin D of everyone in this country, we would see a dramatic change to the level of health in this country. And so we made sure that vitamin D to the rescue is the highest quality vitamin D that you can buy. It's nutraceutical quality. I would never sell something that I would not take myself or that I would not give to my family. So everyone in my family uses vitamin D to the rescue. Just a couple slides ago, at the beginning of this webinar, I showed you my own personal vitamin D levels. So you can see that this works. It's a clinically effective dosage. And you know, the dual mission of vitamin D is to increase the health of this country and at the same time fight human trafficking. So we sell the bottles of vitamin D because it helps you, and then we take the proceeds, we take $5 from each bottle and we give it to organizations that have a proven track record for making a difference in fighting human trafficking. Right? So I could keep going on and on about the features of vitamin D, but I will just tell you it's a quality product on a quality mission. Now, if you've never been to our website, it's vitamindtotherescue.com. I would encourage you to go and check it out. We're also on Amazon, but right now we're running a buy one, get one half off special. Okay, so normally a bottle is $24 for one bottle of capsules. And if you click on our Spring into Health BOGO half off, you will get two bottles for the price of one and a half. Okay, so $36 total gets you two bottles. If you click on this and order this option, we will send you two bottles for the price of one and a half. So this is a win-win situation, and it's the perfect time. March 2020, we are in full pandemic mode, and so now is the time to be taking vitamin D. Go ahead and order soon, and we will get this to you right away so that you can have it in your body before this thing really hits its peak. All right, I hope that this has been helpful for you. We will be posting links for everything. I want to post links for all of the research that we just discussed. If you have questions, you can reach out through Facebook. So Facebook, our Facebook page is your place to go to. So, all right, have a great day, and thank you for joining us.